The cameras weren't supposed to be rolling. Security wasn't supposed to let anyone through. But what happened 30 minutes before Monday Night Raw went live will shake the WWE universe to its absolute core. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, two men who've torn each other apart for over a decade, just had a backstage encounter so violent, so personal, so utterly out of control that WWE officials are scrambling right now to contain the fallout. And before you click away, before you scroll to another video, you need to hear exactly what went down, because this changes everything we thought we knew about WrestleMania season, about the Tribal Chief's reign, and about Brock Lesnar's future in this company. I'm talking shattered equipment. I'm talking grown men being thrown through walls. I'm talking about words exchanged that cut deeper than any F5 or spear ever could. The kind of confrontation that doesn't get scripted, doesn't get rehearsed, and definitely doesn't get approved by corporate. If you've been following this channel, you know we don't do clickbait, we don't do rumors, we bring you the facts that matter. And right now, you're about to get the complete breakdown of what multiple sources inside the arena are calling the most intense backstage altercation in modern WWE history. So do me a favor, hit that like button right now, because this story needs to reach every single wrestling fan on this platform. Drop a comment telling me your immediate reaction, and if you haven't subscribed yet, this is exactly why you need to. We're the ones bringing you the real stories behind the curtain, the moments that define this business, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next in this saga. Let me set the scene for you. It's approximately 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, an hour and a half before Raw goes live from the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. The arena's buzzing with the usual pre-show energy. Crew members are doing final checks, production staff are running through camera angles, and superstars are starting to filter into the building. Roman Reigns arrives with Paul Heyman, as always, moving through the backstage area with that aura of untouchable dominance he's carried for over 1,300 days as champion. The Tribal Chief doesn't just walk into an arena, he conquers at the moment he steps foot inside. Security clears the path, staff members nod respectfully, and even veteran superstars give him space, because that's the kind of presence Roman Reigns commands. But here's where everything goes sideways. Brock Lesnar wasn't scheduled to be at Raw. Let me repeat that because it's crucial to understanding why this exploded the way it did. Brock Lesnar was not on the internal roster sheet for this show. He was supposed to be back at his farm in Saskatchewan, training, staying away from WWE programming until the Royal Rumble next month. That's been his pattern for years, right? Brock shows up when Brock wants to show up, does what he does, and disappears back into the wilderness. But something changed. Something brought the Beast incarnate to Newark unannounced, unscheduled, and based on what happened next, absolutely ready for war. Multiple sources who were in the immediate vicinity tell us that Brock walked into the building through a side entrance typically used by production trucks. No fanfare, no Paul Heyman equivalent announcing his arrival, no camera crew following him. Just Brock Lesnar in jeans, a t-shirt, and that look in his eyes that veterans of this business recognize immediately. The look that says someone's about to get hurt. He moved with purpose through the backstage corridors, and according to one crew member we spoke with, he was asking one specific question to anyone he encountered: "Where's Roman?" Now think about the psychology of this moment. These two men have been in each other's orbits for over a decade. They've main event WrestleMania multiple times. They've beaten each other bloody in cage matches, last man standing matches, and every other stipulation WWE could throw at them. Their rivalry is the stuff of legend, the kind of blood feud that transcends storylines and gets into something real, something personal. And despite all of that, despite the money they've made together and the moments they've created, there's always been an undercurrent of legitimate tension. Real competition between two alpha males who both believe they're the most dominant force in professional wrestling history. So when word reached Roman's locker room that Brock Lesnar was in the building and looking for him, the atmosphere changed instantly. Paul Heyman, who's managed both men, who knows their psychologies better than anyone, immediately went into damage control mode. According to sources close to the situation, Heyman tried to convince Roman to stay in his locker room, to let security handle whatever Brock wanted, to keep things professional. But here's what you have to understand about the Tribal Chief. Roman Reigns doesn't hide. Roman Reigns doesn't back down. And Roman Reigns certainly doesn't let Brock Lesnar march into his territory making demands without a response. The confrontation happened in one of the main backstage corridors, an area lined with equipment cases, monitor setups, and just enough room for two massive human beings to go face to face. Witnesses describe a scene that went from tense to explosive in a matter of seconds. Brock approached Roman with that predatory walk, that slight bounce in his step that signals he's ready to unleash violence. Roman, flanked by Paul Heyman and a few security personnel, stood his ground, chest out, eyes locked on Lesnar. For a moment, maybe 5 seconds that felt like an eternity to everyone watching, they just stared at each other. The kind of stare that communicates years of competition, resentment, and unfinished business. Then Brock spoke. We don't have the exact words, but multiple people in earshot confirm he brought up the Royal Rumble, he brought up Roman's title reign, and he made it crystal clear that he's coming for everything the Tribal Chief has built. But it wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. Disrespectful. Dismissive. The tone you use when you're not asking for a match, you're announcing an execution. Roman's response was immediate and just as intense. He stepped forward, closing the already minimal distance between them, and from what we're told, he reminded Brock exactly who runs WWE, who's been carrying this company on his back for years, and who's going to still be standing long after Brock's sporadic appearances become too infrequent to matter. That's when things got physical. Not a worked punch, not a scripted shove for the cameras. Real contact. Brock put his hands on Roman's chest and pushed him backward into a stack of equipment cases that went crashing to the floor. The sound echoed through the backstage area like a gunshot, and suddenly everyone in the vicinity realized this wasn't a planned segment, this wasn't part of the show, this was two legitimate tough guys about to tear each other apart in a space that wasn't meant for combat. Roman responded instantly, charging forward and driving Brock backward into the concrete wall with enough force that witnesses heard the impact over the commotion that was erupting all around them. Security rushed in, but here's the thing about trying to separate Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar when they're genuinely heated. These aren't regular-sized human beings. These are two of the most physically imposing athletes in WWE history, both former champions, both legitimate tough guys with amateur wrestling backgrounds and years of experience in real combat sports. It took 8 security personnel and several road agents, including legendary veterans who've been in the business for decades, to create enough space between them to prevent an all-out brawl. And even then, even with all those bodies in between them, Roman and Brock were shouting at each other, straining against the people holding them back, making it clear that this confrontation was far from over. Paul Heyman, caught in the middle of his worst nightmare, was trying to play peacemaker while visibly sweating through his suit. Remember, this man has managed both of these monsters, has been in the trenches with both of them, and knows exactly what they're capable of when the switch gets flipped. He was shouting something about handling this professionally, about the business, about not letting emotions destroy what could be the biggest money match of the year. But neither Roman nor Brock seemed interested in Heyman's rational approach in that moment. They were locked in, focused only on each other, and making promises about what they were going to do when they finally got their hands on each other in an official capacity. The aftermath is where this story gets even more interesting. WWE officials immediately went into crisis management mode. Adam Pearce, the Raw general manager, was on the scene within minutes, trying to assess the damage and figure out how to handle the situation. Do they acknowledge it on the show? Do they pretend it didn't happen? Do they turn it into an angle even though it started as something very real? Meanwhile, production staff were checking the equipment that got destroyed in the melee, making sure nothing critical for the live broadcast got damaged. And medical personnel were on standby because even though no one appeared seriously injured, when you have two men of that size and intensity colliding, you don't take chances. But here's what's really fascinating about all of this, and why it matters so much for what's coming next. There's real heat here. Not the worked heat that makes for good television, but the kind of competitive fire that exists between two elite performers who both believe they're the absolute best. Roman Reigns has held the championship for over 1,300 days, has elevated it to a level of prestige it hasn't seen in years, and has built an entire empire around his reign as tribal chief. He's not just the champion, he's the guy, the face of the company, the one everything revolves around. And Brock Lesnar? Brock is the one man on the roster who doesn't care about Roman's reign, doesn't acknowledge the tribal chief's authority, and has the credentials to back up any challenge he wants to make. When Brock Lesnar says he's coming for you, it's not a threat, it's a spoiler. The question now is how WWE handles this moving forward. Do they fine both men? Do they suspend them and risk the backlash from fans who want to see this fight happen? Or do they do what smart promoters have done since the beginning of this business and channel all this real tension into the most anticipated match possible? Because let's be honest, if you thought you were excited about the Royal Rumble before, if you thought WrestleMania season was going to be interesting, what happened tonight just raised the stakes to a level we haven't seen in years. This isn't Roman versus Brock, part 17. This feels different. This feels personal. This feels like two men who are genuinely ready to hurt each other, and that's the kind of energy that creates legendary matches. I want you to think about the biggest matches in WWE history, the ones people still talk about decades later. They all had something real behind them. Some element of legitimate competition or personal animosity that elevated them beyond just a scripted contest. Stone Cold vs. Bret Hart had real professional jealousy. Rock vs. Austin had legitimate competitive fire. And now we're watching Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, two men who've already created magic together, add gasoline to a fire that was already burning hot. This isn't about who's going to win anymore. This is about what's going to be left of the loser when it's over. If you're still watching this video right now, you understand why this matters. You get that we just witnessed a turning point in WWE's current landscape. Everything that happens from this moment forward is colored by what went down in that backstage corridor. Every stare, every word exchanged, every eventual match between these two is going to carry the weight of this genuine confrontation. And that's why I need you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We're going to be following every single development in this story. Every backstage rumor, every official statement, every hint about when and where these two giants are going to collide again. This is the kind of content that separates us from everyone else, the real stories that matter, delivered to you without the nonsense. Hit that notification bell because I promise you, this story is just beginning. Drop a comment right now telling me who you think comes out on top when Roman and Brock finally get their hands on each other officially. Are you Team Tribal Chief or Team Beast Incarnate? And share this video with every wrestling fan you know because they need to understand what just happened and what it means for the future of WWE. The cameras weren't supposed to be rolling, but the entire wrestling world just felt the shockwaves. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar just declared war, and we're all about to witness the fallout.